Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. My name is Giridhari. And today I want to talk to you about a beautiful, very interesting sutra from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which talks about the jewel-like mind, the crystal mind of the yogi. So we're talking about Samapatti, a very important yogic term, Samapatti. And we'll be reading, let's just read first the sutra. This is Sutra 41 from chapter 1 of the Yoga Sutras. It goes like this. This is the translation I use in my book. Samapatti is complete absorption in meditation. This happens when the influence of the fluctuations of the mind, the vrittis, weaken. In this state, the mind becomes like a transparent jewel or crystal that is colored by whatever it focuses on, be it the seer, the instrument of seeing, or the seen. Okay, bit of a mouthful, right? This sutra, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So let's try to break it down. So what's going on? It's really interesting. And if you get this, you get this great insight into higher states of consciousness. So we have two key terms here, vrittis and samapatti. So what are the vrittis? Like I've explained in other verses, in other videos here, but vritti, and Patanjali is explained in other sutras, in other verses. So vrittis, they are the fluctuations of the mind. The vrittis are the turnings of the mind. And so as you go living, every experience you have, every register of life, creates, the vrittis there creates a register in your mind. Okay, so like a little, think about a computer, like a little recorded, bit of data is stored in your mind stuff. Right? And these vrittis, of course, they accumulate and they become samskaras. So these samskaras, they're like accumulations of vrittis. And these samskaras then, they accumulate and they become vasanas. They become tendencies. So what's going on is, as we're living, reincarnating life after life, all the experiences you have, they are accumulating and then they're transforming your vision of life, right? I mean, we call this in psychology conditioning, right? You're conditioned, right? A person who has a certain childhood will interpret a fact a certain way, and then another person has a different childhood will interpret that same fact. They can be together in the same situation, but they'll be like, their minds will be interpreting that situation in a different way because they have different vrittis, samskaras, and vasanas. And then, of course, when you're talking about like really different, like different cultures, and then it starts getting, that's why people have a hard time sometimes with communication, because very different cultures and like they have different vrittis and samskaras, and then you're coming with your vrittis and your samskaras and vasanas, and you see the same thing, but one person is interpreting it one way and the other a completely different way. And then problems arise. But so the point is, the mind is constantly being influenced by these accumulated vrittis. So what's Patanjali saying here? Remember, this is at the end of the Samadhi Pada, the first chapter, the first pada of the Yoga Sutras, where Patanjali goes all the way to describe the highest state of near bija samadhi, the perfect state of perfect consciousness. Okay, so this is almost at the end of chapter 1, where he's reaching up to these higher and higher levels of consciousness, of description of the yogic consciousness. So in this already very high level, samapatti, now what's going on? You can completely absorb your mind in meditation. Why? He gives the explanation. When the influence of the vrittis weaken. So what happens is, because you've been working on your mind for so long, because he's explained in other verses, you're purifying your vrittis, you're creating these powerful vrittis of concentration, because you can now have this power to direct your mind. The influences, the conditioning of your mind doesn't drag your mind out of focus, doesn't color, it doesn't tilt the way you absorb that experience, right? Because normally what the mind is doing is that it's all these accumulated memories and vrittis, tendencies, samskaras, vasanas, all these things are there constantly pulling your mind this way and that. So whatever experience you have is completely interpreted by the influence of these past experiences, of this accumulated stuff in your mind. But now the yogi's gotten to the point in Samapatti. He's reached the point where these things are no longer bothering him or her. These things are no longer affecting his or her vision. So then the yogi can simply experience reality. This is a great idea. Just experience reality purely. What a great idea. And so then he makes it very graphic by using this idea of the crystal mind. He says, then the mind becomes like a transparent jewel. He says jewel, but crystal makes more, because jewels really color. So a crystal, like you see this perfectly beautiful quartz crystal, completely clear. And then what happens when you have this perfectly clear crystal? Anything you put, like if you put like a red rose behind the crystal's going to become red. If you put the crystal near a green wall, like I have, it's going to become green. Because now it can absorb completely. It's transparent. It just is, completely identified with whatever it's focused on. And now imagine if you have a non-clear crystal, a non-transparent crystal. So then you can put it against the red wall and it's just going to remain. It won't change. It's like it's like this, if you have a very white crystal, if you have a red jewel, and then you put it against like a gray background, it's going to become red. It won't become gray. And so it's going to be coloring, it's going to be influencing, bringing that to the experience. But now in this state of Samapatti, this is no longer happening. And so you can try to experience this crystal mind. I mean, of course, as you progress in yoga, you will get more and more of this crystal mind, which allows you, so in practical terms, what does this do? It allows you to just experience things as they are. And you can do that by becoming aware of the influence you're bringing to the experience. So you can consciously take note of like, wait a second, as I'm looking at this, as I'm here experiencing this situation, am I just being objective? Or can I feel the influence of my conditioning? Can I see myself like, is this triggering memories and feelings from other times, or can I just experience as it is? Because what happens is usually it triggers, right? We have these triggers, and they happen unconsciously. For example, it's very fascinating. This is just as a side note here, parentheses. For example, people who have trauma, there was one case, the soldier was at war, and there was a kind of soap they used during the war. They just had this kind of soap there, And so then he got back home and he was kind of okay, but one day his wife brought this new kind of soap home and he went to the shower and boom, PTSD all the way, freaked out. And he's like, what the hell, like I was doing fine for years here and all of a sudden I'm freaking out. And then it took them a while to figure it out, no, it's the same soap. And then the brain, oh, look, this soap is the same as that soap. That means we must be at war. The brain just makes these crazy connections. That's how the amygdala works. The amygdala has its own memory. Anyways, it's a fascinating neuroscience topic. But so the amygdala was remembering the soap, which the person consciously wasn't remembering. But the amygdala remembered the soap and so triggered, the panic attack, like danger signals, because so we remember, so we have this, we bring this stuff up, and now you can try to consciously like, okay, am I bringing anything up that shouldn't be here? Am I just experiencing this situation as it is? So anyway, so that is the Samapatti, the transparent crystal mind, which then allows the yogi to fully look, and interesting, Patanjali says 3 things that you can focus on when you're meditating: the seer, yourself, the process of meditating, of observing, of seeing, of experiencing, and the object. So you can focus on these three things, and in Samapatti you can experience the three things purely. Anyway, I hope that makes sense to you. If you have any questions, let me know. Leave your questions below. I would love to hear from you, and have the rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.